You know, when you get to language, actually, it just struck me. At birth, we might be dealing with a question mark. At death, we're looking at an exclamation point.
That's well said.
And a good eulogy will evoke not just sorrow, but joy in remembering the person's life and their little quirks and funny things that they did. So a good eulogy also can have tears of or joy and laughter in it, just like in a bris. So frequently when families talk about, tell us about the baby's name. Why did you pick this name? Because we traditionally name babies after relatives who have died. And it's often a grandparent or a great-grandparent. And when parents start to talk about, this was what my grandfather was like. He had a sense of humor, he was strong, he was brave. These are the characteristics I want my child to inherit. And they do that with tears of both. Tears of sorrow, missing the person who's no longer there, and tears of joy that they have this new little person who they hope will inherit their characteristics. So I think both of them can have both emotions, both joy and sadness.
You know, when I think of what you each do, even though it's not specifically the same thing, in a broader sense, you deliver services, but you also deliver experiences in a way. And so tell me a little bit about what that experience is in each instance that you seek to deliver. And when you know that was the way it should be. For example, David, you know.
I appreciate that line. Is and I have to say, you know, using a moil for my son, I think safety is so important, that the family feels safe in your care, that they know that the deceased is safe in your care, just like the baby is safe in your care. And it's not just the circumcision, but it's the post service that you get to take care of the baby, the post service to take care of the family that has died. But I also think that in both of our worlds, talking about the connection, and that we do mark this time. I mean, there are babies born and people die every minute of every day. But in our tradition, we really take time to respect the past and to look to the future. And when people die, you say, what's the future? Well, it's just like, you know, the reason why we tear the ribbon, now we know it can always, or clothes in a traditional community, it can always be sewn up. But you never forget that we had a tear in our heart. And that the Jewish calendar has 5 times a year that we remember our dead. And it's so important to stay connected to our community. That I think there's so many similarities.
Carol, it's interesting, for the years that you have been a pediatric surgeon, there's no religious ritual around performing surgery. But there is ritual around the circumcision, or there is ritual around the naming of a baby girl. So what's the difference? And in terms of your own sense of what you're doing, I'd have to imagine that there is a difference between performing a surgery as part of your work at the hospital versus being a mohelet, a woman who does ritual circumcision.
Well, make no mistake, surgery has plenty of its own rituals, but they're not religious rituals, and they take place in a confined location. What happens with a rite of passage, with a rite that surrounds a moment like birth or death, is that we are placing a family in, placing them in time, so that they're part of a community that came before them, part of a community that will be there after they're gone. And by placing them within community, it's the community of their family, it's the community of the Jewish people. By placing them within a community through ritual, they have a context. We're giving them context. We're placing significance. Not that birth and death are not significant on their own, but we are giving them significance within a greater context than that one individual or that one family. That gives a sense of being part of something much bigger. In Judaism, much of what we say about what happened before we arrived or what happened after we go is we don't know. You know, we don't necessarily purport to be able to describe what exactly happens after you die, and that's changed through time in the history of Judaism. But we also don't feel compelled to describe that in detail.
The aspect of choice comes to mind. People can die and be buried, similarly are born, and the 8th day following birth can pass without any reference to religion. People choose to have a Jewish burial or to have Brit Milah. In many cases, I suppose that choice is a given based on that family's background, but in many cases, I imagine it isn't. So, David, I mean, if you're on the phone with somebody who's thinking, well, this would have been important to my father, but I don't really care. I mean, do you have those instances, and do you find that people maybe come after they've been through the experience of working with you, that they're very grateful in a sense that they did reference tradition?
Oh, totally. I think that the misconception of what I do at times is we just don't provide a casket or burial merchandise, so to speak. It's creating an environment that's relevant to the family, that makes them feel part of the community, that gives them a safe place and a safe experience to say goodbye to their loved one. And it doesn't always have to be in the most traditional sense, but it's still marking time. And we've had funerals where there are montages. We've had memorial services where, you know, someone was from the Harley community, and we had 200 motorcycles at the funeral home, and they all started at the same time, and that fire start, or that big ignition, was their way to say goodbye to their friend. And I think that no matter how you look at it, everyone has some form of tradition, some form of sacred way of doing things, be it the way you sit at the dinner table, you know, who carves the turkey at Thanksgiving. It's marking time. And the one thing that I find fascinating that you mentioned earlier is about the traditions or the ritual of even surgery. And my guess is that a surgeon does their job, funeral directors, a reporter, a moheled. But I think in anything that we do, even at this moment, you can find a sacredness about it. It doesn't always have to be religious, but the experience of being together, the experience of sharing, I have to tell you, I think that's pretty sacred in and of itself.